the Upper Macquarie County Council trading as the Central Tablelands Weed Authority meeting this 9th day of August 2024. I note that will be our final meeting, or will be our final ordinary meeting for this this term of our respective council tenures. Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands we work and live. Council celebrates the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of the New South Wales Central Tablelands. Members and the public are advised that the proceedings of this meeting, other than any confidential matters, will be recorded and made publicly available on the council website, and persons attending this meeting should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Item 1 is apologies in attendance by AVL. I have one apology from Councillor Watt. I don't believe there are any others. Can I have a mover to accept that? Thank you, Member Leslie, Member Fry. Thank you. All in favour that Councillor Watt's apology be accepted. Thank you. Item 2, disclosure of interest. Recommendation is, councillors are reminded of their obligations under the Council's Code of Conduct to disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. If any member has any declaration of interest, they should do so now. Are there any disclosures of interest or disclosures of conflict of interest? I note that there are none for the record. Item 3 is the confirmation of minutes. Item 3.1 is the minutes of the ordinary council meeting on the 21st of June 2024. The recommendation is that council adopts the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Upper Macquarie County Council held at 7 Lee Street, Kelso at 2 p.m. on 21st of June 2024. Could I have a mover, please? Member Reynolds and Member O'Connor seconding. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favour? Thank you. We now move to 3.2, which is the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 5th of July 2024. The recommendation is that council adopt the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of the Upper Macquarie County Council held at 7 Lee Street, Kelso at 10 p.m. on the 5th of July 2024. Could I have a mover, please? We have Member Smith and Member Leslie. Thank you. Any discussion on this matter? Put the recommendation. All in favour? Thank you. We move to item 4, which is matters in progress. The recommendation is that council notes the report. Could I have a mover, please? Member Smith and Member O'Connor. Thank you. Discussion on this matter. I have some discussion actually.
Same question.
Oh, sorry, Member Fry.
No, it's probably just an expansion from staff's point of view as to how it sounded. What, generally, whether the decision might be a good outcome or not.
Through the General Manager to the Chief Biosecurity Officer.
Yes.
Chris has been speaking with them. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so through Mr. Chair. Yeah, the 2 staff members from Forestry that we met with the members for this area that sort of run that section. Both of them were very keen to stay part of our roadside program and greatly see the benefits of it involved. They were a little surprised though when we presented them with information of the amount of roadside frontage they do have within each of the council areas. There's more out there than they thought.
Yeah.
But both of them were very keen to go off to their sort of finance side to try and acquire the extra funding needed to undertake the work.
So the appetite's there, you're saying?
The appetite's there. They can't guarantee that they're going to receive the funding.
No.
They're pushing for it. We then followed them up at the end of last month and again since then. But I haven't received a yay or nay.
Yeah, cool.
At this stage.
Thank you.
Further that, I understood originally when we were, I think it was the last meeting, we discussed this, and they were pretty happy that the 20,000 would cover what they thought they had. And I thought they'd done some mapping, but their mapping wasn't detailed enough, and that we proved their mapping was wrong, was it? Because that's where we got to last time. I thought because I remember asking you, are you sure that the 20,000 is going to, you said they thought the 20,000 would cover it.
So, 3 points here. Yeah, so going from the mapping, the mapping was quite short, so we sat down and went through it and redid it, and came up with a, let's say, a greatly different number than what they had for each of the council areas. So looking at their 20 grand, that they were initially looking at, we feel that's going to be short compared to the.
So what are we looking at? They're going to have to put 50,000 or 60 or what are we talking, what order of magnitude are they short?
I would need to double check that and come back to you. I don't know what that number is off the top of my head.
I don't think it matters, just as long as the appetite's there. That's
Well,
good.
no, they will, yes, the appetite has to be there, but they also have to be at least given an indicative figure so that when they go back to their superiors to try and get the funding, that they can give them a realistic figure that will do the work, because obviously to date, they've had an unrealistic figure.
I think Chris is saying it's corrected that figure.
They've got kilometres for each council area, they've got the kilometres for each section within each council area, and they've got the cost for last year for their roadside program per kilometre. So from that, they should be able to easily calculate out what they need for the site for each year.
So if it was Campbell's River Road in Oberon, they had $424 a kilometre.
No, that's not what the forestry was much dearer than that.
Right.
But they've got the figures for what last year's forestry program cost them per kilometre, and they've got the kilometres for each council area for each of the 3 sections. So from that, they can calculate out how much they need to be trying to budget for.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Chris.
Member Owen?
So with regard to last year's program, did they do all the roads that we did in each of the sectors, in each of the 4 constituent councils? Were they all covered in the 20,000, or were there some roadsides left because we ran out of money?
Within the first round, so year 1 round, going by the figures they'd given us, we thought they would cross all of section 1 and they started into section 2. When we went back through and redid it, there was a couple of roads in section 1s that got missed that we didn't know was part of section 1 from the data they provided us to start with.
So the 20,000 didn't do sector 1.
It would have come very close if they hadn't moved into section 2.
Oh, okay.
Because they asked us to do some roads in section 2 to use out the balance of the accounts.
Gotcha.
But I think that can be greatly rectified now that we know exactly how many kilometres are on the different roads.
So an additional question through you, Chair. So is sector 2 and sector 3 much bigger, given that $20,000 would have nearly covered it?
Well,
From a forestry point of view, are they much bigger?
that's not what we're talking about. But
You're just talking about road length.
road length,
Yes.
yeah, hang on, give me a second to open it up.
Yeah, but it sounds like the discussion with forestry is very positive. That they want to make those additional contributions to the program and they want to be involved. Let's see whether they turn up for the money.
Well, that's the thing, and I think my issue is we know what we charge them for doing. We now know, after we've sat down with them for each of the council areas, we know what's in each of the respective section 1, section 2, section 3 as originally planned. We should be able to work out and verify with them for each of those sections then
The same as we're doing with the
constituent
councils.
consistent count, what it's going to cost, so that we can say, if they say, oh, you'll put an extra 5,000, we say, actually, well, no, if you've done the calculations, we verified, it's actually, we need to do
So much more.
so much more. That's what I'm concerned about, if we don't give them a realistic number.
Yeah.
Chris has got a number of the length of roads, I think.
So Backers in total across all three sections is worth 24K.
Right,
Okay, section 1 being 5, section 2 being 17.2, section 3 being 1.8.
so 17.2 means that they're going to have to budget for section 2 next year a lot more money than they did this year, just for Bathurst.
But that's a matter for them, and we'll see if they come through with the finance.
It's a matter for us too, because some cases it's not worth doing along the roads if you don't do the forestry bit as well.
Of course.
Because you-
Yes, your
half
chair.
a job.
Okay, Blaney's 9.5 with 0 in 1, 2.8 in 2, 6.7 in 3.
Again, they'll have to increase their funding to the budget on 0 for
Lithgow's 23.3 with 14.5, 6.3 and 2.5. Over on 156.3 with 31.4, 72.7, 52.2.
sorry, what was that?
156.3,
156.
31.4, 72.7, 52.2.
Yeah.
It's forest. Forest, 42%.
You gotta do it around the wind turbines too.
That's right, so 156. So they wouldn't have done anywhere near 156.3 this year, the first section, would they? Because Overrun didn't do that.
No,
It's a cash cow out of there, right?
Right, okay, well, I think taking those figures into account, Mr. General Manager, I think we should be doing our own estimations to verify that what they're putting up to their bosses is somewhere realistic. Just even if we can just sort of try and match figures, because is this what you budgeted? All right,
So
any further
correspondence off to them along those lines.
motion, talking with them initially, I think.
Okay.
try and get it.
All right, I'll vote for that.
All right, we'll put the motion, all in favour? Item 5 is governance program.
Chairman's minutes.
Sorry?
Chairman's minutes.
Oh, Chairman's minutes, sorry. Item 5, Chairman's minutes for case and confidential papers in item 12. Item 6, governance program. 6.1, legislative compliance, public interest disclosure of annual return. Recommendation is the council notes the report. Remove, please.
Thank you.
Connor and you, thank you. Any comments on the legislative public interest disclosure annual return?
It was a nil return,
Nil
Mr.
return.
Chairman.
Yeah. Okay. Put the recommendation, all in favour?
Right.
6.1.2, ARIC annual report. The recommendation is that council notes the report. Do remove it, please. Member O'Connor, Member Fry, thank you. Any discussion on this? Maybe do you want to comment on it, Member Reynolds, as you were on the ARIC?
Thank you, Chair. It's pretty well self-explanatory. It just outlines what was achieved by ARIC over the last 12 months. It's a fairly short report, and it will go as part of the annual report. Or
I think that is right.
Yes.
Yeah.
so
It's in addition to the annual.
there's nothing contentious in that ARIC report.
No, yes.
It's a good summary.
Put the recommendation, all in favour?
Satisfactory.
6.2 policy, 6.2.1 is procurement policy. The recommendation is that council adopts the amended procurement policy. Move it, please. Member Fry, Member O'Connor, thank you. Discussion on this procurement policy. Member Reynolds.
I thank the staff for, I've got the old procurement policy in front of me, and I will bring that up in another matter shortly. That actually it's a lot clearer, tabulated out. Procurement is a real issue, and in talking with the auditors earlier this week in ARIC, particularly internal controls with procurement are a big issue. And so they're reviewing internal controls. And so it's very important that the staff, the general manager down, understand what they're allowed to procure, without going out to tender, or how many quotes they need, etc. And this policy does outline that very clearly. Also with regard to expenditure, as in what's permitted without the approval of council and what's not permitted without the approval of council. And clear guidelines on the amounts. I think they've been modified, if my memory serves me right, because I don't have the new policy in front of me, but I think it's gone up to roughly 200,000, but it's, whereas the old policy was quite low on some procurements, the new policy actually clearly outlines more clear guidelines. There's the table there, so it's in a table format. So for staff, again, they can actually see the levels of procurement. The one area, and there's a quadruple bottom line approach within this procurement policy. The old procurement policy, and possibly a question, had two sort of categories of simple procurement and complex procurement. And I think they've been removed as such to one lot of procurement. And I do have in another item a discussion about complex versus simple. So I assume in removing the two areas, it removes ambiguity. Is that the right word? So between as in the forms of procurement, so that the staff again have a clear set of guidelines on what they can and can't procure above, and the process to go with when procuring items, rather than as in, does it fall into simple procurement or does it fall into complex procurement? So overall, I think it is a much better set out policy than the previous one, and support that. By the looks of it, we're not going to go out for public comment, we're just going to approve it at this council meeting. So I don't see that there's major issues, but number 10, I think, is very important: budget limitations, because that's where the delegation, if the budget says that you've only got 50,000 to spend on a particular item, then you can't spend any more without coming back to council to increase expenditure on a particular line item, whether that's the capital budget or the operational budget. So I think it's a better document that makes it a lot clearer for the council staff to operate under. I think that's a good summary, but some other councillors may have some other comments, Chair.
Thank you, Member Reynolds.
Thank you. Not said, mate. No, understand.
You said it all, Bruce.
Articulate, isn't it? Maybe good.
Just to add.
No, I do read the policy and I read the old one and it was much better. I thought it was much clearer as to how it's set out. So I agree with Member Reynolds completely. Any other comments on this? I put the recommendation on the vote.
Aye.
6.3.1 is the unaudited general purpose financial statements 2023-24. The recommendation is that the meeting authorises the chairperson, Andrew McKibben, and the deputy chairperson, Bruce Reynolds, to sign the statement by members on page 2 of the general purpose financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2024. Second is that council submit the general purpose financial statements to the external auditor. Removal, please. Member O'Connor, Member Smith, thank you. Discussion on this matter.
He's a singer.
Member Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. So one area, in looking at the financial performance, it looks reasonably good. I think there was as in on the draft, so we'll wait for the auditor to come back and make an assessment. It looks pretty good at, I think it was $80-something thousand, $82,000. As in, apologies not having my computer here, as in there's a heap of notes on that, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So hopefully the memory's still working. So 82,000 is good. We were projecting only a small surplus, and that included the sale of 3 motor vehicles, which had been written down to 0 and would have some value. We were projecting, I think it was $30,000 in motor vehicle sales. So with the non-sale of motor vehicles plus the increased performance. Now, partially, as in one of the reasons why, was the offset of a staff member who's on workers' compensation, and that position was funded. So it actually provided extra revenue into the entity, which went back out, but we'd also funded that position through council as well. So that meant that that staff member's wage wasn't utilised, hence the surplus, because our operating costs were reduced by staff expenses by that particular staff member's wages. There were a few other savings and also extra interest revenue, I think was one of the bigger other revenue items. I think we got, was it close to $50,000 in interest revenue, and I think we were only projecting about 30,000. Geez, I got a good memory. And so that was another $20,000 that impacted on our bottom line. When you put those two items together, that has pretty well led to the surplus. Now, coming as the projected surplus, we'll wait for the audited accounts to come back to the council. One area that I did have some concern about, and I'd like it referred to the external auditors, is with regard to something that they've talked about, which is internal controls. And in the ARIC briefing paper that I provided, which is just a summary of comments from ARIC, the external auditor, which is the audit office, did indicate about controls, internal controls, and that's where they would be looking at. The one area in looking at our procurement policy and with relation to external controls is in relation to the purchase of chemical. And I noticed...
The gentleman has just gone to hold on for a minute.
Okay.
He's just finding something for me.
That memory's good though. Hold it. If I could. It's not the exact figures.
Give me the trick.
Yeah, it's already looked at.
This one.
Oh, they're just saying that.
Yeah.
And the audit office is looking at internal controls, so it's not.
Mm-hmm.
No, we haven't. No, we haven't actually. No. Sorry, I did ask questions on the financial members, and I hadn't got the response, but I think you all have, so that was good.
Yeah, they're
Went for everyone but me. If I could just have a minute to read the responses, that'd be fantastic.
Chair, do you want a 5-minute adjournment?
If we could.
I'll move it for a 5-minute adjournment. Someone second it?
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for that short recess. So I will read the results of some of these questions so they go on the record. The smaller than usual user charges and fees, which was budgeted for 37K, but the actuals were 294K for the financial year in 2024, was principally due to a smaller aerial program. That was the significant difference. The other expenses, 34K, of which 29,000 was bad debts. Some of these are area spraying debtors from previous years. Some have questioned the quality of the work. It's a question of following up with the landholders. And there are some also outstanding debts for penalty infringement notices not being paid. And in those instances, they've been referred to Revenue New South Wales for debt collection. Note B2-2 in the accounts, which is other revenue of 76,000 of the 94,000. Mostly that's due to workers' compensation reimbursement, roughly $54,757. Motor vehicle funding for staff. That is where I'm assuming staff pay back the private component of their vehicles, 7,410. LLS weed identification book, 5,325. Is that where we sell them, or what's happened to that?
It was the publication of the book.
Publication, right?
So we received restricted funds many years ago, and
Yes.
that's remained restricted. But it got to a point where I needed to pay
Really
for some
realise
of realise it. So that's what that is.
For a supplementary on that one, as in, so is there still 35,000
Yep.
or thereabouts?
There is,
Um,
but
Is there any indication they're going to use these funds or? what?
yeah. So we've had communications just this week actually in regards to sending it for printing.
Right.
We wanted to go.
Yes, we want to go. Yes. Enforcement cost recovery, but over $8,000. That's where we've recovered costs from our enforcement activities. So that totals about 5,580. I asked what IPP&E is, and because I couldn't recall it would be at that time infrastructure, plant, property, equipment. On the cash flow, material and services outflow, which had increased to 1,313,000. Well, it was budgeted at 915,000. The significant increase was roadside spraying contractors' costs, which increased significantly compared to budget, with a greater amount of roadside spraying being done and at a higher cost. I asked questions as to the inventory of why the inventory had gone from 127,000 to 87,000. Fluoropropionate makes up a large amount of the inventory. There are currently 125 10-litre drums being in council store.
Chair, can I just correct you on that? The inventory went from 40,000 to 127,000.
Yeah, the reverse.
Which is 87,000 K increase.
Increase, yes.
Increase, yeah,
Sorry.
this is, yeah.
It sounded around the other way.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Okay, so yes, so it went from 40K to 127K, which was 87,000 increase. So I don't know what the value of. So I'm assuming 125 10-litre drums is roughly 125,000 and $1,000. It's a bit less than that, but plus or minus a bit. And I suppose my question emanating from that is, are we confident that we will continue to sell that? And at what rate are we selling it at the moment?
That question was put to us when we made the purchase last year.
Yeah.
That we had some concern about our ability to sell it. So we did actually limit the purchase last year and then ran a much smaller aerial program. It is still being acquired at the moment. People are still coming and buying it at that rate. That's the only product on the market, and our rate is lower than the commercial market at the moment. So if
I don't know if it's low. Sorry. I think it's just competitive. So
okay, so
equal to, or there's others out there that sell it greater than.
So are we continuing selling one drum a month, or?
Yeah. So for example, one went this week.
So when do we expect that we'll sell this and have to replenish?
we will go into the next aerial program with that. And we won't be ordering until we know what the aerial program looks like, knowing that we have that in stock.
And there's no expiry date on it, I'm assuming from what you said.
I don't believe so, not from what the APVMA shows on their website regarding expiry dates around herbicides that aren't limited to a two-year expiry. So as long as it's kept in the right conditions as per the label, then yeah. I also found that fluproponate granules, according to, I can't remember which website, says that it has no half-life in the ground. So, which means if it's has no half-life in the ground, its expiry date or its shelf life would be quite lengthy then as well. Because if it's not going to go off in the ground, it's probably not going to go off on the shelf. We do, but yeah, but that's just an example of fluproponate. You know, that's what they're suggesting with one type of fluproponate.
Okay, so we have the following inventories are currently kept by councils.
Sorry, is it worthwhile publicising what we keep in store? Not all of it's for sale. I'm just, this is going public. I'm just concerned about.
No, I don't think we keep the normal stock that we sell to the public, which is fluoropropionate, Grazon and Grazon are the major items that we sell.
Yep.
And they are basically what we keep in the, and some other chemicals for our own purposes.
Yes, yep, for projects, etc. Yeah.
Including some wetting agents.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Are there any further comments on this area?
Well, may I start again? Actually, you put me on hold.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I did, and then I read mine. Yes, sorry.
Yes. So my concern, going back to comments, was on the level of inventory that had gone up, but also coming back to our procurement policy. The previous procurement policy where these chemicals were purchased. In reading the previous procurement policy, which was the one that we followed, one would conclude that it's a complex procurement where procurement values above $50,000 require a public tender process. And in reading the conditions for a complex procurement, that there is a competitive market for the goods, works or services, that's very simple, where there's not a competitive market. So in this case, there was only one supplier, but it should have still gone out to procurement. Now, I have, in looking at the accounts and also looking at the budget, and by the sounds of it, originally around about $200,000 of chemical was procured, correct, General Manager, or not? Of fluproponate.
The fluke, I think, from memory, was like 187,000, something like that. Yeah.
So we as a county council didn't go out to tender. It wasn't within a budget. So under normal procurement processes, is that the staff or the general manager is given, a budget. If you go above that budget, and the new policy actually talks about the budget in section 10, I think it was. This procurement policy was probably a little bit ambiguous around that level. But the question that I have is, and I'd like it progressed to the external auditors, were there internal control processes that weren't followed, or were they followed? And I'd like to see the external auditor actually have a look at that and potentially make some recommendations back to the new council if there weren't, but taking into account that there is a new procurement policy, but this one was done under an old procurement policy. So I don't know if the general manager or the business administration manager might want to comment further, but that's what I'd like to see taken back when we sign off on these accounts, which we haven't signed off on yet, to send to the auditors to actually take a little bit of a look at. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Reynolds. Those matters were brought to our attention during the audit, and I believe that it drove the need to make adjustments to our procurement policy. Lisa was actively engaged in those discussions, so I'll throw to her just to make comment about our non-compliance, I'd suggest, in one area due to knowing that this product had just become re-available to us, and we did proceed proceed with some haste. And the compliance may not have been absolutely accurate there, but I'll let Lisa comment.
Sure, thanks. With the procurement of the food propane, in the situation that this council was in, and the ultimate goal that this council sort of heads towards, which is the reduction of the risk of things like serrated tussock and blackberry, looking to support the community, we, I think, evaluated that quadruple bottom line about, and I know that that wasn't based in the original procurement policy, but I believe that the spirit of what we did was actually contained within that decision. Now, we did have many discussions around this table with this council about the availability of flupropionate, and we were all aware about what risk it was going to pose if we purchased this, how much it was going to cost us, what effect it would have, whether or not we'd actually get the customers in, what effect it would have on aerial spraying. We've had those discussions many times. So it was, as much as, yes, it may have been outside any stipulated rules in the current procurement policy at the time, I think that there were no internal controls that could possibly have covered off on this scenario or this situation with what this council was faced at the time. We just come out of COVID, there's been no flupropionate around for ages. We were just discovering that there is resistance, and we knew that the opportunity to purchase this flupropionate might have been just a one-off, and to support the community of Oberon, Bathurst, Blaney and Lithgow, it was important to obtain that chemical at that time. So yeah, I think it's probably a one-off, probably may not even happen again, but to build in the internal control based on something that probably would not or may not ever happen, I think that would be nearly impossible. I mean, it's hard enough to build internal controls on things that happen daily here because we're so limited in how many people we have. So, and yes, internal controls have always been the biggest question for any auditor that comes through here, but we've always been able to demonstrate that we do the best we can with what we've got. And substantive testing is high. Always has been, always will be.
Yes. Reynolds, we have no concern at all about your recommendations to refer the matter to the auditors and have that discussion.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't delay the accounts, but yeah, we will do that, and we'll do it early next week.
And the reason why I ask is in the light of another county council and their audit, as in 12 months ago, and some of the recommendations, in sitting on ARIC, the external auditors were highlighting that they're looking at internal controls anyway. So this would possibly be part of any review into it. But a supplementary, if I may, back through you, Chair, with the new procurement policy, I'm just a little confused, and I know we've just passed it, but so with regard to I think it's the Act, and I can't remember which section it is of the Act, with regard to procurement, and there's an upper limitation before everything has to go to tender, which I assume is the $250,000 figure here, which it says above anything that has to go to tender. But given the one issue is that if something isn't budgeted, so it's not in the financials, as in budget either as a capital item or on the operating side, as in, does that still, under this new policy, should that still come back to council for approval, given that technically the general manager doesn't have permission from the council to spend that money until it's actually approved by the council, because only the budget figures can be approved by the councils. So I don't know whether, and it does say budget limitation here that general manager can't go over. So I assume that would also indicate then that if there wasn't in the budget, so this is section 10 with the limitations, that it would have to come back to council anyway, just under a normal assumption that the general manager only has a limited budget to work within, that you must stay within. So I think it's been answered as in the general manager has an indication that there are limitations in section 10, but just whether there is clarification on that anything that's outside of the budget must come back, whether there should be actual wording in this section 10 to state that, or whether it's obvious anyway in what section 10 is indicating.
Yeah, Bruce, yeah, happy, but, the irregular timing of the county council's meetings could cause some concern to that if, there are things that are required now. And the council, next ordinary meeting is scheduled out, so the calling of extraordinary meetings would need to occur for us to meet that requirement.
And it may well be via video, Mr Chair, through you, Chair, to the General Manager. That's a potential option that.
And it's most probably a good control as well. But I don't want you all hopping in your cars and travelling for a 5-minute discussion. Or
I don't know.
do something with the chairman's delegation and.
Well, that may be something that needs to be looked at, is what the chairman's delegations are and whether they need to be extended. That's, but when you're talking, you might be talking 5,000 or 10,000, but if you're talking 150,000 above delegation, then that should be the county council, not the chair. As in, there has to be a limit to whether that needs to be put somewhere in a policy. I'm not quite sure if we have it in any policies at the moment, but something for the new council to look at, because it's too late for this council. But the delegation to the chair, and then what should be in it and what shouldn't be in it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr Chairman, can I comment on this?
Yes, just
I remember this discussion very well, and I think that with the availability of the flu propionate coming on as it did, but I was actually quite impressed by the fact that the General Manager felt he had the flexibility to act as he did in circumstances that may not happen again, but it was something that happened, and to respond to get that when it was unclear whether this would be further available or not. I thought it was good, and if it may have breached the policy, well, so be it in some ways, and it was reported as soon as possible. But I think it was a good thing that our General Manager felt that with his staff that he could act that way.
I recall the decision well, members. It weighed heavily on me.
yes,
May I just add, though, that potentially to an add-on to Member Leslie's comments, that the recommendation still should have probably come back to the next council meeting, and I can't find any recommendation that's come back to purchase that extra chemical. So, while you can have delegation, it still should be approved by the parent body when you go outside of budget parameters. I think it's very important. Otherwise, you start to lose internal controls, and as we have seen with another county council, that has meant that potentially that organisation is going to be wound up. So it's good procedures and policies.
governance.
With corporate governance, you're correct, Chair, to actually at least come back and get retrospective approval from the governing body.
I think the new policy will allow a certain sense of agility, though, for future cases.
Well, I hope so.
It's still subject to budget, though. That's so, Chair.
All right, further discussion? All in favour of this recommendation? The two parts, thank you. 632, investment report for June 2024. The recommendation of council notes the report. Member, please. Gentlemen, members, Member Fry, Member Smith, thank you. Any discussion on the investment report? This is for June 2024. Discussion. I've put the recommendation. All in favour? Aye. Thank you. We go to 633, which is the investment report for July 2024, and the recommendation is that council notes the report. Member O'Connor, Member Smith, thank you. Discussion, yes, Member Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Probably through to the Business Administration Manager, but maybe through the General Manager. The $1.521 million that we have in the account at the end of July, one assumes that some of the councils, constituent councils, plus the WAC funding that came through right at the end of the fourth quarter, but have all councils paid, or only some paid, or where are we up to with councils paying their contributions?
Lisa, thank you.
One council had paid right before the end of the month, just right before the end of the month. So too soon for me to do anything or move it somewhere better.
So supplementary, if I may, on that one. So 3 councils still hadn't paid at the end of July.
Yep.
And secondly, looking at the first quarter results, which I know is 2 months after this figure here to the end of July, at 1.7 million. Given that roadside spraying will be independently billed, one would make the assumption that we won't have that level of cash that we had at the end of the first quarter, at the end of this of last financial year, at the end of the first quarter of this financial year. Is that correct?
Yes, I suspect so. With the roadside, under the proposed amendments, it will be all dealt with during August and an invoice issued in September.
And a further supplementary, if I may, Chair, with regard to the purchase of motor vehicles, one would assume that tender will conclude sometime in the next few weeks, and that there will be a large cash withdrawal to cover those purchases. So the figure should be well down.
Correct. The tender closed on the 31st of July, and we're having a tender meeting next week to finalise that arrangement. Correct.
Thank you.
And have we moved any further with putting any of this on a longer term basis?
No, I have not had any discussions with the bank at this time. I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but that job is still on our list.
Okay. The recommendation, all in favour?
Aye.
6.4, human resources. 6.4.1, wing biosecurity officer position. Vacancy. Recommendation is the council notes report. Move it, please. Member Ewan and Member O'Connor. Thank you. Is there any update on this general manager before discussion?
We're interviewing 8 people on Thursday of next week.
No.
We had some very talented applications. We're very pleased with the interest that was shown.
That's good. I think as a county council might be making a second recommendation to the part 2. That the county council acknowledges the service that Michael Willett has provided to the Central Tablelands Weeds Authority, and thanks him for his service to this organisation. Second for that. Thank you. Smith. Right, so we have the recommendations now in 2 parts. Council notes report, and the second one, which
Thank you.
the acknowledgement of Mick Willett's service and thanks from the county council for his services to this organisation. I put the recommendation in 2 parts. All in favour? Thank you. Item 7, land policy program is nil on that. We move into road spraying program, which is item 8. The recommendation is that council notes the report. Part 1, 2 is that council delegates authority to the general manager to take up an act on the constituent council's agreed changes to the roadside weed control services agreement. Move it, please. Ewan and Member O'Connor. Discussion on this, please. My comments, General Managers, I thought we were going to see the SLAs before they actually went out to constituent councils from the last meeting. are you going to circulate those once you have the constituent councils agree changes for us to consider before they actually sign?
Oh, absolutely. I think there'll be a need, because there may be not common agreement from the four councils. So I think that will be the opportunity to come together, and there are other matters in this agenda that we will be discussing later that may also be tied to such a meeting. So the consultation to finalise any changes has to occur. And I would provide to this council the results of this consultation. It's been delayed. I was trying to push it through, but the councils are taking their matters to their August meetings. I don't expect to get responses until the end of August. We would then, I'd have a paper for you about those responses.
Fine, so that will be for the new county council,
Will be, yes.
to look at.
Now, that's got some issues around it, is the purchase of the new equipment for the flow meters.
That's right.
But until I get the responses from the councils, I just don't know where that issue is. The ones that have spoken with us have both supported the purchase so far. That's Lithgow in Bathurst, but that is a management decision. It hasn't been to their council. Overall on the matter, except for your discussion today. Yes.
I'm just wondering, General Manager, noting what it says in 2.
Yes.
As to whether it would be more appropriate that once you are cognizant of the proposed changes by the constituent councils and what they are prepared to agree to in relation to the roadside weed control services agreement, that those changes and a discussion should occur with the then delegates of the Upper Macquarie County Council at that time, prior to the service level agreements being
Amended.
Because I think the
So
delegates.
you're not saying, the member delegates.
Yes, that I'm saying that I'm not sure. If we delegate authority to you I'm not saying we shouldn't have delegated authority for you to negotiate, but I think the ultimate decision as to whether that SLA is appropriate to be signed by this county council or each constituent council should probably be approved by the board, just member delegates.
A question through
It's
the
the timing, isn't it?
It's a question of timing. It will be the new. Yes, I know. Sorry.
Well, my question is going to be that would probably put it to October or early November
Later.
before any decision, probably late October. Which is that going to impede, given the council's looking at potentially from November on doing some roadside spraying?
Well,
There's also the matter of there's things in the proposed changes that impact on the contractors. So I have not released the renewal with the contractors. Tender is yet, it needs to go early September. They've been kept informed, they're aware of it, our current panel members, but they need to book their life out this summer and their business time. So that adds another dimension to the need for either the delegation or a meeting of some description that is going to be conducted, I think, in the caretaker period.
and my concern is that you may not get consistent agreement between each of the 4 constituent councils anyway, and that there's going to be,
The agreement could fall apart a little bit.
yes, that's what I'm concerned about, and I'm not sure where we go, and I'm sort of thinking that the whole thing may have to come back to a meeting with delegates anyway.
Yeah, but if it
And
falls,
it may be the delegates and the general manager, sorry, rather than different managers.
but if it falls apart, it falls apart, and there's nothing we can do about that. So, but this is assuming that, you know, the general manager is able to get consensus, and therefore we can proceed with it. I'll move this motion as printed.
Okay, well, I think it has been.
Oh, sorry.
You want to know, Connor?
I didn't actually put an amendment as, I was just asking questions. So we're confident that we will agree that we will not get any say on the changes that the constituent council put up to this agreement. We're happy that that they can be accepted by the general manager without reference back to this board.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we're in a position where we really have not much choice about it. We just, we may not be happy about it, but we have to, in my belief is we have to acknowledge the facts of is that we're in the dying days of this this council, but the operations, you know, the operational aspect of this county council will have to continue, and we just have to live with that.
Yeah, it's a busy period leading.
And it's a busy period, and we can't afford to have this matter not be resolved, waiting for, you know, October or possibly November.
My concern is it won't be resolved, but that's because I think there will be disparate views of the particular constituent councils. But yes, never else.
A question through you, possibly to the general manager, with regard to delegation powers. There's nothing in this business paper with regard to delegating during caretaker period, which probably extend until late October. Should we have a recommendation about delegation of powers to the general manager over that period of time?
Is it not inferred, or is it implied under the Local Government Act?
I thought it was implied.
Yeah.
Just that some councils do actually pass a motion with regard to delegation during the caretaker period. For example, Orange City Council has. My council hasn't had its meeting yet, so I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know if other councils have had meetings yet on that issue.
It's an OLG circular that recommends that you make sure as a council you cover off on all the delegations required for the council to continue.
Is there anything outside your delegation authority that you
would need whilst
envisage?
Yeah.
So would this fall within your delegation authority? This,
I think there's a couple. The tender.
Yes.
For the engagement of the contract, the panel of contract suppliers. This matter, I would normally bring back to council. I think they're the two biggies.
The tender for 3 or 4 years through you, Chair, to the general manager, would probably be the big one, because you're locking in for potentially 3 years or 4 years this council to these tenderers. That to me is a very big one.
Yeah, but those tenderers in the way they are contracted is only by us issuing a purchase order to them to undertake
So
work.
it's standing offer arrangement.
So we do not have to engage them.
And there's a vehicle tender.
The vehicle tender, that's impact next week. Yep.
Normally there's a recommendation to council and council determines who the preferred tender is.
Because, yeah, is it outside?
If
it's outside.
Through you, Chair, if it's budgeted, so there's already a budget approval for it, and it probably falls under $250,000, which I suspect it possibly will. You probably could, it does say a tender process.
Yes.
I'm sorry, no, request for quotation from 50 to 250,000 under the policy we've just reviewed. So, and it doesn't say a request for quotation has to come back to council. So the general manager, yes, could. So, agree with the general manager.
Right.
So
Okay.
the biggie is the service agreement.
I thought they normally did when they were that value. For approval.
But then you look at the old policy, it was 50,000,
Yeah,
Chair, so that's the difference. This is a new policy that we've just endorsed.
right, yes.
It's ratified as of an hour ago.
Yes.
Okay, well, anyway, that would have to be, this will have, if we're
So
going
do we want to make, so my question back through you to the chair is, should we, as the last recommendation here today,
Just limitless
actually
power.
no, not limitless power, but actually make a recommendation about delegation until the caretaker period
Yeah, but I
ends?
don't think we can do it in item 8, because we're dealing with specific roadside spraying program. It has to be a new resolution.
Correct. I'm not saying it now, but I'm saying it as a last resolution of, in the general business, that we allocate it.
Well, let's talk about it then.
Yes.
Right, so the recommendation is written. We're happy with that, are we?
Yes.
Pumped on it.
All right, I put the recommendation in 2 parts, all in favour?
Thank you.
Item 9.1 is the biosecurity compliance inspections of June, July 2024. The recommendation is the council notes report. Move it, please. Member O'Connor, second it. Member Leslie, thank you. Discussion on this report. Member Reynolds.
Could I move when the final minutes or an updated business paper also include the last 12 months, which I did request via email, and we were provided with the WAP program, but actually attach it to the business paper so the constituent councils and others can see what we've achieved over the last 12 months as opposed to June and July figures here. So I just, not that I'm amending the recommendation, but to actually include or add to the business paper so that report's included and it's on the public record.
Well, maybe you should move the recommendation be changed so the council notes reports and requests that the yearly figures for WAP and for the WAP funding and yearly inspection figures be circulated.
Wow, amazing.
I'm happy.
That was all
Second.
there.
All in favour of the amendment? Amendment becomes the recommendation. All in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. 9.2 penalty infringement notices. The recommendation is the council notes report. A moment, please. Member Smith and Member Reynolds, thank you. Discussion on the penalty infringement notices. How many have been issued since the end of June?
We're at the same position we were before.
Right. So with the decrease in the 90-day inspections, we still, there hasn't been many, no pins have had to be issued. Right.
Yeah, we haven't issued it since.
Okay, I put the recommendation, all in favour? Thank you. Item 10. 10.1 is County Council meeting schedule. The recommendation is the council adopts the proposed meeting schedule. Member Reynolds and Member Ewan.
I assume that the darkened line through the 18th of October means that meeting's not happening.
No, it's happening.
But you'll have fun because Lithgow Council's not actually meeting until the 8th of October.
Fine, they'll appoint the delegates and they'll travel along 10 days later.
It didn't happen last time. The election of county delegates didn't happen until a full month after the
Committees,
Right before
the council-
it occurred.
Yeah,
So
council
okay,
met.
yeah.
committees, yeah, Lithgow's very late.
Later.
I don't run the place. I don't put recommendations up. I'm just saying.
A question through you on a follow-up to Member Leslie's comments. As in, I think we asked at the last meeting if the general manager could ask the full constituent councils or notify them of the intent. Has the general manager been able to notify the full councils that they have
Yes, I
intention?
had that discussion. We had a variety of responses. Most of it was putting a lot of pressure on our planned meeting date of the 18th of October. I'm uncomfortable with having to develop business papers at that time for a newly elected council. I can see induction type activities occurring at that time. That
That's just the week.
I'm just struggling to see how we're going to have the full contingent by the 18th of October. And if we know there may be a hold up with that, I'd be suggesting you move out.
Well, could I suggest an amendment that the 18th of October be deleted, and do we delegate authority to the general manager to call a meeting of the Upper Macquarie County Council as soon as practicable after the forthcoming elections?
Yeah, you gotta give him a bit of flexibility. Because if Lithgow suffer another delay.
It could be May next year.
Yeah, well, that's
Mr. O'Connor, what you gonna do to him?
Propose a date, at least we'll know.
So it's the 1st of November possibility, Stephen?
You check your calendar for us, Steve.
you'll be there by then.
True.
No,
I think first of November is probably
Martin
good.
Parshurst is already calling himself the mayor-elect, so we've got to assume that's going to happen.
All right, we're not talking shop here, boys. Come on.
It's being recorded.
First of November.
That's true.
Ordinary,
No, he won't mind.
we set ordinary meetings, sort of 2 to 3 weeks into the month so that, we have
The end
time
of the
to
previous
develop,
month.
to develop the end of month. Otherwise you wait too long for the next lot of results, so that's why we would give ourselves a little bit of time to generate, particularly for operations.
Yeah, but if you set it at the 15th of November, it's only 4 weeks before the December one.
I'm going to hold to my amendment as I moved it.
I'll go with you.
All right.
Sorry. So could you just tell us your amendments then?
As soon as practical, following the 14th of September 2024.
Delegated, we delegated with authority to call the meeting, the ordinary meeting of Upper Macquarie County Council as soon as practicable after the 14th of September local government elections.
So technically it could still be the 18th, but it may not be the 18th.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fine.
All right, so that's seconded by Councillor Member Ewan. All in favour of the proposed amendment? So the amendment now becomes a motion, and I put the motion, all in favour? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr.
Now,
That's good.
Item 10, I'm going to insert item 10.2, delegation of delegation of council powers, whilst in, sorry?
I think, no,
Whilst in, caretaker mode. Well, it's even extends beyond, doesn't it, until the new council delegates are appointed, so it's
At the commencement of the care.
until the
from the commencement
First
of
meeting
the
of
caretaker to the first meeting of council. Does that work?
Of the county council.
Of the county council, sorry.
yes, so the recommendation is that council delegates its powers to the general manager from the commencement of the caretaker period to the first Upper Macquarie County Council meeting following the council elections. We've moved back into open session of council comment. Item 12, the general manager's performance review. Moved by Member Leslie and seconded by Member Ewan. Recommend the resolutions were that council notes the performance review committee's report on the general manager's performance for the period 6th of June 2023 to 6th of June 2024. 2, extend the general manager's contract of employment so that it ends on 4th of July 2025 rather than 6th of June 2025. And 3, increase the general manager's remuneration by 3.5% plus the 0.5% increase in superannuation for the 24-25 financial year. Item 13, which was business continuity planning type and organisation structure. The recommendation, which was moved by Member McKibben and seconded by Member Reynolds, was that Council direct the General Manager to undertake further work on the business plan, including discussions with the constituent councils on their position in relation to the roadside spraying service level agreement, and then refer the matter to the new incoming council in 2024-25. Item 14 was the prosecution case update. The resolution was that council notes the report. It was moved by Member Reynolds and seconded by Member Leslie. Item 15, which was the property inspections. The resolution was that council notes the report. It was moved by Member Fry and seconded by Member O'Connell. There was a new item 16, the ARIC delegates report. It was moved by Member Reynolds and seconded by Member Fry that council notes the report. That was the resolution. I declare that the next meeting of the County Council is to, in accordance with the resolution of today, be at a date determined by the General Manager as practicable after the new incoming delegates to the council have been appointed by the constituent councils. So the date is currently open. And I now declare this meeting closed at 4:11 p.m. on the 9th of August. And before we close, I would like to thank members for their work during this term. I think we've been a very proactive and constructive group, and every one of us has worked very well together. I wish to thank you all. I think you're all a great tribute, not only to yourselves, but to your councils for what you've done on this committee. And I think we've been a very unified group, and it's been a pleasure to have been your chairman and to work with you all. I'd also like to thank the General Manager for his work, the Chief Biosecurity Officer and the Chief Administration Officer. Thank you very much for all your work, and the staff of the Upper College. It has been a privilege to work with you all, and I think we've achieved a lot, and there's a lot to achieve in the future. And I only hope that during the next term, the members of the new board will be as constructive as I have had the pleasure in dealing with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.